Welcome to another deep dive. You know we love to take your suggestions, and today we're going underwater.
That's right. We're diving into the world of sharks.
Based on some amazing research that you sent us, we're going to uncover some pretty amazing stuff. I mean, sharks are cool, but they're also a little scary. But what we found out is that they're way more interesting and important than a lot of people realize.
Yeah. What's so remarkable about sharks is how long they've been around. Did you know that they were swimming around over 400 million years ago?
400 million. Whoa, that's before the dinosaurs, right?
Yeah, even before the dinosaurs.
That's crazy.
It is.
And to think that they were around when, like, continents were forming and everything.
Exactly. They're ancient. And they belong to this fascinating group called chondrichthyes.
Indrichthyes.
Yeah,
Okay. I can't say that one.
it's a mouthful. But basically, they're cartilaginous fish. So unlike most fish we're familiar with, their skeletons are made of cartilage, not bone.
Okay, so that's pretty different from, like, a salmon or something.
Right. This makes them super lightweight and flexible, perfect for a life of hunting in the ocean.
Okay, so they're ancient. They got this unique skeletal structure. But I'm looking at these notes, and they're clearly not just sitting around for millions of years doing nothing. What else makes them such successful predators?
Well, even their skin is kind of amazing. It's covered in these tiny tooth-like scales called dermal denticles. It's like they're wearing armor plating that helps them glide through the water, almost like zero drag.
So it's not just their shape. It's like they've got built-in high-tech swimsuits or something.
Nature is amazing.
Nature is a pretty amazing engineer.
Yeah.
And their senses. I know they've got this whole reputation for smelling blood from miles away, but there's even more to it than that, right?
Yeah, they do have a highly developed sense of smell, but they also have something even more incredible, ampullae of Lorenzini.
Ampullae of Lorenzini.
Yep.
Okay.
These are these tiny pores on their heads that can detect the faint electrical fields generated by other living creatures. So even in murky water, or if their prey is hidden in the sand, they can still sense them. It's pretty wild.
Wait, so it's like they've got this sixth sense, like a built-in radar or something.
It really is. It's like having a sixth sense.
And their eyesight, does that play a role too? I mean,
Yeah.
how much can they actually see?
Eyesight is important too, though. How much varies between the different shark species. Like those that hunt in well-lit waters, it's a key sense for them. And some species have adapted to see incredibly well in low-light conditions, like those in the deep ocean.
So we've talked about them being these ancient, highly evolved predators with all these incredible adaptations. But I think for a lot of people, when they hear the word shark, one very specific image pops into their head. That, iconic fin slicing through the water.
Yeah.
The great white.
Oh, yes, the great white. It's a powerful predator, and for good reason. I mean, they're huge, they're fast, and those teeth, definitely a force to be reckoned with.
But that's just one type of shark, right? I was really surprised by how many different kinds of sharks there are.
You and a lot of other people, there's this common misconception that all sharks are like great whites, but actually, there are over 500 different species of sharks.
500.
Yep. And they range in size from the tiny dwarf lantern shark, which is so small it could fit in the palm of your hand,
Yeah.
to the massive whale shark, the largest fish in the sea. And their body shapes, habitats, even their diets, they're all really diverse.
So it's almost like saying that all mammals are the same because we're mammals. You wouldn't compare a mouse to an elephant, would you?
Exactly. Think about the hammerhead shark. That crazy shaped head isn't just for looks. It actually gives them superior binocular vision and helps them find prey. Then you've got the goblin shark, who looks more like an alien than a shark.
I've seen pictures of that one. It's definitely the weirdest looking shark.
Definitely weird, but it's perfectly adapted for its deep sea environment.
Now, what about the whale shark? Because I know they're not exactly hunting seals and stuff.
The whale shark is a filter feeder. It mostly eats plankton and small fish. Even though it's the largest fish in the ocean, it's basically harmless to humans. It really shows you how diverse sharks can be.
So clearly, thinking all sharks are like Jaws is a mistake. There's so much more to them. But now I'm thinking, okay, they're predators, but what does that actually mean for the ocean? What's their role in the bigger picture?
Well, sharks are what we call apex predators. They sit right at the top of the food chain. And that role, it's crucial for maintaining the balance of ocean ecosystems.
Right, because they're keeping those populations of other fish in check, right?
Exactly. So it's like a natural system of checks and balances. And it's not just about individual species, it's about entire habitats. For example, sharks prevent overgrazing of seagrass beds and coral reefs by keeping herbivore populations in check. Without them, those habitats would be in trouble.
It's like a domino effect. You take out the sharks, and suddenly everything else is impacted. And speaking of balance, let's talk about how they bring new sharks into the world. They have some pretty fascinating ways of doing that, don't they?
Oh, yeah. Sharks have three main ways of reproducing. We call them oviparous, and viviparous.
I'm going to need a translation on those.
Sure. Oviparous sharks lay eggs. Those tough little cases, sometimes called mermaid's purses.
I've seen those. They're really cool looking.
Then there's oviparous sharks. They keep the eggs inside their bodies until they hatch.
So the pups are born live.
Exactly. And finally, we have viviparous sharks. Their pups develop internally with a placenta, similar to mammals.
Wow. So they basically have all the bases covered when it comes to reproduction. Some lay eggs, some give live birth, talk about variety. And some of them, I was reading, have really long gestation periods, right? Like years.
You're right. Some species, like the spiny dogfish, can be pregnant for up to 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Talk about being a dedicated parent. But, all this talk about different ways of reproducing and different species, it just goes to show how much variety there is in the shark world. It's kind of a shame that so many people still have this, Jaws image of them as these mindless killing machines.
It really is a shame. The vast majority of shark species are actually pretty cautious and try to avoid humans. But yeah, Hollywood and the media, they've definitely created a lot of fear and misunderstanding.
Well, they are powerful predators, so I get it. But I was fascinated to read about some of their more complex behaviors, like hammerhead sharks, for example. They do this schooling behavior, right?
Oh, yeah. Hammerhead sharks often gather in these huge schools, sometimes hundreds of them. And lots of shark species actually undertake incredible migrations, traveling thousands of miles across the ocean. They're a lot more complex than most people think.
That's amazing. They're social, they travel. There's so much more to them than meets the eye.
Exactly.
But unfortunately, this brings us to a more serious topic, and that is the threats that they're facing. I know overfishing is a huge problem, but what else is going on that's impacting them?
Well, you're right. Overfishing is a huge threat. We're talking about millions of sharks killed every year, often for their fins, meat, or cartilage.
Yeah.
And then you've got bycatch, which is when sharks are unintentionally caught in fishing gear meant for other fish. It's a big problem.
And on top of that, they're losing their homes, their habitats are being impacted by pollution and coastal development. It's kind of a triple whammy.
Yeah, and climate change is adding to the problem.
Yeah.
Warmer water temperatures, changes in ocean acidity, these all have big impacts on the whole ecosystem. So sharks are facing a lot of challenges right now.
It's pretty overwhelming when you think about it.
Yeah.
Are there any reasons to be optimistic? I mean, is anyone out there working to protect them, or are we just kind of watching this all happen?
Well, there is hope. Lots of people and organizations are working hard to protect sharks. One thing that's helping are marine protected areas, or MPAs. These are like underwater parks where fishing and other human activities are restricted.
So it's like giving them a safe space, a place to recover and thrive.
Exactly. And then there's legislation with countries banning shark finning and things like that.
Yeah, I've heard about that. So things are happening on a government level.
Yeah. There are also sustainable fishing quotas in some places, which can help manage shark populations and prevent overfishing. So there are a lot of positive things happening.
That's good to hear. What about individuals? Can regular people like us actually make a difference, or is this something that's really up to governments and big organizations?
Every little bit helps. Even small things can make a big difference when a lot of people do them.
Like what? Give us something we can actually do, because I know our listeners want to help.
Supporting organizations like the Shark Trust or the Shark Conservation Fund is a great place to start. They do amazing work. And when you're grocery shopping or eating out, look for sustainable seafood options.
You mean actually reading the labels and making sure the fish you're buying was caught responsibly?
Exactly. You can even ask restaurants about their sourcing practices. If you see shark fin soup on the menu, don't be afraid to voice your concerns. It's about making conscious choices as a consumer, but it's also about spreading the word. Tell your friends, your family, use social media to raise awareness. It all adds up.
So it's a combination of things. Making informed choices, supporting the right organizations, and spreading the word.
Exactly. Remember, we all have a part to play in protecting these amazing creatures. Sharks need our help, and together we can make a difference.
It's pretty incredible to think that something as simple as buying a certain type of fish could help protect sharks. But you mentioned earlier that we haven't even touched on some of the coolest facts about them.
We haven't even gotten to the best part.
Let's keep diving in. All right, so we've covered a lot about sharks, where they came from, the threats they face, all that stuff. But before we get too serious about solutions, I got to hear some more of these cool shark facts you mentioned. Let's lighten things up.
All right, let's do it. Sharks are full of surprises. For example, did you know that a whale shark's mouth can be over 5 feet wide?
5 feet? That's like bigger than my couch?
It's huge.
But they're not using those mouths to chomp on things, right? They're still filter feeders.
Oh, yeah. Plankton and small fish are their main food source. It's amazing to see those huge mouths in action, filtering out tiny creatures.
It really is. Nature is full of surprises. Okay, give me another one. What else have you got?
Okay, how about this? Sharks have multiple rows of teeth, and get this, they're constantly replacing them throughout their lives.
Wait, so it's like they've got this endless supply of teeth.
Pretty much.
That's a little freaky, but also kind of cool. No wonder they're such effective predators. Okay, I got to ask you about this one because it really blew my mind. Some shark species can live for like hundreds of years.
Yep, you're thinking of the Greenland shark. They can live for over 400 years.
400 years. That means some of them swimming around today were alive during Shakespeare's time.
It's mind-boggling, right?
It really puts our human lifespan into perspective. All right, so we've learned a lot. Sharks are ancient, they're diverse, they're vital to the ocean, and clearly they're full of surprises. If our listener were to walk away from this whole deep dive with just one thing they could do to help sharks, what would it be?
You know, if I had to pick just one, it would be to really think about the choices you make as a consumer. Supporting sustainable seafood practices is huge. Look for labels, do a little research, and make sure the seafood you're buying is coming from responsible sources.
So it's not just about avoiding shark fin soup, which we all know is bad, but it's about being mindful of the entire seafood industry and its impact on sharks. Okay, that makes sense. What about those bigger challenges? Like, we've got economic interests, cultural traditions, even just fear that can make conservation difficult. How do we get past those things?
It's complicated for sure, but I think it all starts with communication. We need to talk to each other, share information, listen to concerns, and find ways to work together.
So it's not about pointing fingers or blaming anyone. It's about finding common ground.
Exactly. Like, there are some communities that have relied on shark fishing for generations, and now they're finding new ways to make a living, like through ecotourism.
That's cool. So it's about showing people that there are other options, ways to protect sharks while also supporting people's livelihoods.
Exactly. And education is a huge part of it, too. The more people understand about sharks, the less they'll fear them, and the more likely they are to want to protect them.
Makes sense. Knowledge is power, as they say. But education isn't just about, like, memorizing facts, right?
Yeah.
It's also about fostering a sense of wonder, like that feeling you get when you see something incredible in nature.
Absolutely. If you can get people to experience the beauty of the ocean firsthand, whether it's through diving, snorkeling, even just visiting an aquarium, that can have a huge impact.
It's like you can't really appreciate something until you've seen it for yourself.
Right. And when it comes to sharks, there's still so much we don't know. They're full of mysteries, like scientists are still trying to figure out their migration patterns. Some of these sharks travel incredible distances.
It's like they have this secret map of the ocean that we're just starting to understand.
And their social interactions, their sensory abilities, how they adapt to changes in the environment, there's just so much more to learn.
It sounds like studying sharks is a never-ending adventure.
It is. And the more we learn, the better equipped we are to protect them.
So it's all connected. The research, the education, the conservation efforts, it all works together.
It does. The fate of sharks is really in our hands.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the challenges, the solutions, and all the amazing things about sharks. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final question. So given everything we've learned, what can we actually do to make sure sharks are still around for, future generations? It's a big question, but I think it's worth asking.
It is a big question. And it's easy to feel overwhelmed, right? But I think the most important thing is to remember that we're all part of this. The ocean's health is our health. Protecting sharks isn't just about saving them, it's about protecting a system that we all depend on.
That's a good point. It's not just about being, like, animal lovers. It's about understanding that we're all connected. What we do on land affects the ocean and vice versa.
Exactly. And I think those connections can be really positive too. Like when you support sustainable fishing, you're not just helping sharks, you're supporting businesses and communities that are doing things the right way.
It's about making those connections more visible, right? Helping people see that their choices, even something as simple as buying a can of tuna, can make a difference.
I think so, because when people feel empowered, they're more likely to take action. They see that they can be part of the solution, not just part of the problem.
I have to say, this whole deep dive has really changed the way I think about sharks. I definitely had some preconceived notions, but now I'm seeing them in a whole new light.
I'm glad to hear that. And even though we've learned a lot today, we've really only scratched the surface. There's still so much more to discover about sharks.
That's what's so cool about them. They're these ancient creatures, but they're still full of mystery.
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, a huge thank you to you for being here today and sharing your expertise with us. And to you, our listeners, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the incredible world of sharks.
It's been a pleasure.
Remember, knowledge is power. The more we learn about sharks, the better equipped we are to protect them. So keep exploring, keep learning, and until next time, keep making ways for shark conservation.